Imagine you are a tired traveler in the Middle Ages, dust on your boots, stomach growling after a long day's journey. Then, through wooden stalls along the roadside comes the smell of sizzling meat, hot bread, and spiced wine. No, not today's fast food joint, modern fast food joint. This is the medieval McDonald's version, and it has been feeding people for centuries. But what if I were to tell you that medieval Europe had its own drive-thru culture long before golden arches? From crowded city markets to the dingy tavern, people in medieval times had all of the elements to get a fast, cheap meal. No Happy Meal toy at that. Fast food culture was much richer even for medieval Europe. Not everyone had time or money to cook meals at home, and it was the street vendors, market stalls, and even taverns that came to their rescue with ready-to-eat meals. The service of fast food must indeed have been found very useful in the circumstances of the Middle Ages. Why fast food existed in the Middle Ages? Life varied greatly in different regions during the Middle Ages. If you were a rich nobleman, you could rely on having your meal cooked for you in your castle, using a whole army of servants. Yet for the needy, working classes in burgeoning cities, things weren't so easy. Most of these were joint families living in small, single-roomed houses without enough proper arrangements for cooking on open fire indoors, except for lighting indoor fires, which was quite risky as well as expensive. Fuels, whether wood or charcoal, were quite dear and procurable enough a distance off. And what with long hours put in out in the fields, workshops, or marketplaces, the majority had scant time for cooking, and that was fast food. Taverns, cookshops, pie stalls, and fishmongers filled the gap and provided ready-prepared meals for anyone who had a few pennies to spare. Medieval fast food was, therefore, not a luxury, but rather a necessity for the urban dweller. Medieval menu. What was on offer? So what exactly would one get if they stepped into a fast food joint in medieval times? Shockingly, the selection was much more varied than one would imagine. Pies and pastries. One other kind of the quickly served foods was the meat pies. These were enclosed in a thick and hard crust named a coffin that could either be filled with minced pork, beef, fish, or game. Usually, it was not possible to consume the shell as it acted more of a vessel. But the content inside the pie was rich, spiced, and savory. Think of them like the medieval version of a meat-stuffed hot pocket or Cornish pasty. Fried fish. Fried fish was first introduced in the 13th century in London, wherein fried fish were sold on the streets. This had been an ideal quick hot meal for the people on the run. Even after centuries, it metamorphosed to the famous tradition of fish and chips. Roasted meats and sausages were affordable food options that could be easily accessible to those with lower incomes. A crust of rye bread with a slice of hard cheese was medieval Europe's answer to grabbing a sandwich from a convenience store. Street vendors were roasting whole animals on spits, mostly pigs or chickens, from which they sold slices to whoever was hungry among the passers-by. Sausages, too, were an often favored quick snack, highly spiced to cover the taste of the not-so-fresh meat. Bread and cheese, for those with fewer coins in their purse. Bread and cheese are the cheap, filling staples that keep their hunger at bay. A hunk of dark rye bread with a slice of hard cheese was the medieval version of grabbing a sandwich from your corner store. Soups and stews of veggies and broth. Pottages, thick soups of veggies, beans, and what little morsels of meat tossed in, were all ladled out from huge cauldrons. Think of it as the medieval version of a food truck ladling out hearty broth, ale, and spiced wine. In the necessity of beverage intake along each meal, water was mainly an unsafe liquid, so this seemed to be replaced with ale. Mulled wine was also cheap enough for those with a few more coins and purchasable at taverns and inns. The atmosphere of medieval fast food. So, what was it like to step into one of these fast food joints? Cookshops were of small wooden stalls or buildings open to the street. Groups with friendly association, sharing food and drink. They were smoky, loud with talk and laughter, and wondrous smells of roasting meat. Patrons may stand outside to quickly eat their food, or take it home wrapped in bread. Taverns and inns. Food was available for those who were willing to take a seat at taverns and inns, viewing them more as drink houses. Imagine long wooden tables, straw on the ground, candles burning with smoke in the air, travelers, merchants, or locals, and all spreading out gossip while tearing into roasted meat. Street vendors. Markets were in the Middle Ages what food courts are today. Vendors shouting out their dishes, pies, bread, roasted meat, to attract hungry customers to the noisy, crowded street corners laden with tempting smells. Prices and customers. Fast food in the Middle Ages was remarkably cheap. A meat pie or bowl of pottage could cost as little as a farthing, making it within the reach of almost everybody who was working. Its main clientele was determined to be laborers and craftsmen during times when they were too busy to cook. Travelers and merchants during their travel who needed food, they were on their way, and the urban poor who had no kitchens of their own. In fact, fast food in medieval times was fast because there seemed little time or much money available to spend on food or just for convenience. Dangers of medieval fast food. Of course, be warned, this was not exactly a hygienic experience. Medieval fast food came with risks. Food safety. Meat would soon spoil without refrigeration. Thus, vendors most often resorted to using very heavy spices or sauces to mask the bad flavor. Dirty conditions. Cookshops were full of smoke and dirt, smoke-infested and grimy, and mice would often playfully peep out of the wainscot or between the stacks of broken crockery. And trencher plates, in the first place, were nothing more than flat pieces of stiff, stale bread, which, if they absorbed grease from the food, were thrown to the dogs or to a diner. Corruption. The complainants of the day in medieval records are replete with imputations of bakers adulterating bread with sawdust, brewers with water to weaken the ale, and unfair trading to customers. Markets were often inspected by the city's officials and the deceivers there punished. And yet, the risks apparently did not keep people away, for they kept returning. The food was cheap, filling, and fast. Cultural importance. Medieval fast food was more than food. Taverns turned into centers for gossiping, for politics, or even for crime. Legacy. From medieval to modern, the tradition of street food and fast meals had not disappeared but evolved. Fried fish in the medieval style became one of the dishes of Britain's national food. Meat pies survived in numerous variations all over Europe. Taverns morphed into inns, which further changed into restaurants. So the next time you bite into a burger or grab some fries at a drive-thru, remember that you are participating in a tradition that is almost 1,000 years old. The Middle Ages may not have had the signs that we relate with fast food today, like neon lights advertising fast food joints, drive-thrus, and golden arches. However, there was one thing they did have that was equally as important: good old fast, inexpensive, and therefore comfort food. The requirement is to feed the poor, fuel workers, and keep mid-medieval cities alive in smoky taverns or at bustling markets. It's messy, sometimes dangerous, and essential. In the final analysis, fast food is more than just convenience, it's community. Whether it's a medieval pie seller or modern pizza delivery, it says something about mankind always liking to eat on the run. If you liked this video, please subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching.